Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back after this very long break. Also pretty cool that you still have energy. It's not we don't take it for given. So thanks for that, for staying up so long with us. Let's start with the panel. I will mix the questions a little bit. We have very thick block of MCP questions. I hope Michael will not be the only one that talks here. But it looks like it's a decent part, a very interesting one. Where do we start? As it is a push-based meetup conference, sorry. Let's start with a performance question. Okay. I don't know who will I ask for that because there's no name and no talk. But the question is, what are the most common performance problems you have solved? Or you have to solve in a project first?
Zone.js.
Is it? I want to rather raise a discussion on that. Yeah.
Being
Just put it closer.
so I think one of
Oh, it's off.
I can
It works. Okay.
okay.
We trust the microphone.
From performance side, I think number one is do not ship extra code that you don't need. That is one major red flag. And write clean code. I mean, that to me is like the basic thing that you can solve, that you can do without actually going deep down the rabbit hole of trying to find something to micro optimize your application by 1 millisecond. Like, I think those are the biggest things like you can really do and achieve a lot of things.
Recalculating styles with renderer. That was the
Also
only one I
good
had. I'm glad that you did not mention it.
Running change detection on every move event.
Good
Yeah,
one.
but
Very good one.
you again mentioned just Zone.js.
That's exactly.
Yeah, okay. Just like maybe an insight of what we are doing, and you get a lot of information about how you can improve performance in Angular applications. And the most common thing that you will learn in the beginning is use onPush and use signals and use whatever and improve what the framework has to offer. But in the majority of cases, this is the least improvement that you could ever ship. For us, it's not a journey of transforming 150,000 components to onPush. There would be an impact of it, but the measurable outcome of it and the time you have to put into that is so big that it doesn't like judge it. I think the most common things are people are misusing browser APIs in the wrong way, causing, like for example, you have 20 different components rendered on one page and all of them have ng on an init hook and ask for window.scrollTop. Whenever that happens, you will have a forced reflow for all of the components. There's nothing Angular related and no one will ever figure out because they read about Angular performance and they see onPush and signals. And no one ever will tell you that misusing browser APIs is an issue. And I think that's one of the most common things that we encounter so far.
I guess there's two different areas that I would see there. There's the speed of actually showing something on the screen, that first navigation, LCP, and then kind of the interaction to what's going on next. There's kind of two very different things to get looked at in different ways. From the network side, as you said, like download less, but also don't wait until the very last minute to download things. So that very often happens, and you very often have cases in which, like, you know, you are either downloading absolutely anything before time, downloading 10,000 styles you never used because it sounded like a good idea, or track every single tiny interaction from the user through a very complicated system. Generally speaking, those kind of add to those generators. Not necessarily only Angular, but yes.
Yes, to continue on that, yeah. Preloading stuff is great. Don't overdo it because it's a killer. I think there was I don't know if it was by Chrome, but there was a study that if you actually add more than 5 or 8 preload tags, it actually can harm. Like, you see a performance drop of LCP.
So you say that, but how many actual links are you loading at the same time already? If you have an application that's complicated enough, there's a lot of things going on on top of that. So even attempting to preload something that's immediate,
Yeah,
not doing yourself any favors.
absolutely. And that's why you have to test, benchmark, and see for yourself.
It's not that everyone has to say something. But if you want,
no-
we have enough time.
Now it's peer pressure.
Let's
You
go.
know?
Let's go, Michael. Tell us.
I'm going to take a different angle on that. So, benchmarking. I think you should start measuring it, but then you also should keep on measuring it. Because what we observe is also like people start optimizing a page, but they don't keep on measuring. So there's regressions creep in very slowly, and then suddenly they end up in a situation where it's broken again, and it's even more messed than before.
Sometimes like in enterprise environments with a lot of developers who are maybe not as interested in like the latest and greatest of Angular and still use like NG4, then you don't get any track by, right? Or you get wrong track by often. So they will implement it, but they will not really check if those components are created or destroyed and recreated on every little change of the data. So, and this is something which we've seen very often.
Are we sure it's the next question? Elise, you didn't say anything.
No. I will say something very basic. I would say lack of caching.
Ha! Ha!
Good cache control headers.
Good. Let's go on. I switch to another chapter. Signal forms. Ooh.
I need two microphone. Thank you.
Now that we all know we don't need to hate it, a couple of smaller ones. First, is there any migration schematic planned for signal forms? Yes or no? Yes or no?
I think no, in a sense that there are so many ways to write forms. It's not worth it to have automatic migration. But what really matters is, like I presented, the two-way interrupt, so you can just have a smooth migration that you can handle yourself.
Okay.
You can go for politics now.
Anyone else wants to add some mustard here?
But like, what about Mayo?
What about your mustard? Yeah.
So imagine like if you had like, you know, your own custom dynamic form builder, then you just have to migrate that one, right? So then it will be so much simpler. If you have like 50 forms, or if you had it abstracted anyway.
You could leverage AI if you want.
What I
mean,
wonder.
that's also a story. Like, AI is good at repeating stuff. So if you have the right prompt that matches your use cases, it will help you migrate your code to new APIs.
That's true. It's not that I have a set of questions here randomly out of the blue. Do signals form work with custom elements?
Performance issue.
Blocking tasks.
Good question. Since it leverages a custom directive that is baked in also in the compiler, I'm not sure you would have what you have with regular Angular components. But it's worth testing, and if you feel like it, open an issue.
What a nice way to finish an answer. Matthieu, or anyone else in the audience, more about forms, because I believe the rest will not add more info to the custom elements. Are you sure, Alan, you don't? How much do you like custom elements on a scale from 1 to 2?
-5.
I don't do it.
Good choice, good choice.
There's an additional question, for example.
Aha.
Worth trying, and if something doesn't work like you would expect it, I would open an issue. I mean, like I said in my presentation, there are a lot of edge cases. I want to see your weird edge case.
Okay. There's so many interesting questions. Validators. You define them.
Yes.
If they are defined, right? Will they execute in order as they are written or defined? And in addition to that, will all of them execute if one of them fails? Speaking about async validators, for example.
I don't know.
You don't know. Well, in the past,
So, I think if I remember correctly, no, they won't run in parallel. But if you have a validator that returns different errors, you might get different errors. Multiple, not different, multiple errors.
of the same.
So you will get, depending on how it's implemented, you could have several checks that return several errors. So depending on how your validator is written, you could
Okay.
get the behavior of several.
Good. So the second part of the question is answered. The first one also with you don't know.
I'm like, in a sense, I have the feeling that we run one after the other and we return after one. But if one validator is actually a composition of several ones, you might get the behavior of multiple validators and get multiple errors.
Okay. By accident, I have another question here. When
That's a Q&A panel. That's expected.
when signals forms are stable
Yes.
in the far distant future of next month maybe, will they integrate with Angular material as well? And if
It's already
they
the
will-
case.
And if they will fully with all features, let me finish the question. Will they have breaking changes?
So basically, you know, our breaking change policy only happens when we ship major versions. So signal forms today already are compatible with Angular material, and I'm pretty sure if you have edge cases, some bugs. So this is why it's important that test it, try it, and give us a feedback so we are aware of all the weird cases. Especially if you think you're smart, because I like the smart weird cases, edge cases. So it's supposed to work, but we never know.
Okay. Elise, what is your opinion? When will be the signal form stable? What do you think?
You know that answer, right?
Okay. Signal forms done. There is unfortunately no dynamic signal form question here. Is there anything about dynamic forms? I would love to have 1-2 questions on that topic.
I would love to see the docs on it. We don't have it yet.
Okay, good. Next chapter. I will pick only one of the 50 MCP questions that we have here. Maybe an easy one to start. Can we use Chrome DevTools MCP to test accessibility of a web page?
You want the short or the long answer?
Too long.
The long answer. Lorem
a 2-hour
ipsum.
talk.
So. Partly nowadays, yes, because you will also be able relatively shortly to also inject random JavaScript into a page. But when we have the Lighthouse audits that I mentioned in my talk before, you can run the accessibility audit, for example, or you can add your own audits and they will also be able to run. So soon is probably the right answer to that one. Soon at a level that is actually satisfactory.
Thanks. Okay, let's.
I wonder who asked the question, if that person still here,
Yes.
and what your intentions are. What would be super interested to know. Yes,
Yes.
maybe if it's a nice one. Okay, there's a lot of assumptions in that a lot to unpack. Agents that are browsing websites, they are relying on a lot on visual stuff, but also on accessibility tree and accessibility information. If you look, for example, on the guidance that the OpenAI team with the Atlas browser gives to developers, how do I make my website being accessible to the Atlas browser? They tell you make sure that your accessibility tree is actually top notch because we are using that to navigate your website. Kind of makes sense, right? Yeah, I think that's the answer. So yes, do people that rely on accessibility information on websites a favor and populate your accessibility tree, but also do agents a favor and yourself a favor and start populating your accessibility tree correctly, because that's simply going to pay off.
Okay, I did try to fix accessibility errors with this MCP. It is good when we have proper HTML tags, but when you have everything on div and span, it will give you no errors because the accessibility tree is none. And it can't just understand what is happening on the page. So the worse the page is, the less errors you got, same like with the linters. That's like my subjective opinion and experience with that tool.
Do you know how it's called when you only have div in a page?
Backend developer of content?
No, it's a div. It's called a div soup. Really?
Okay, I believe we are ready for the next one. Let me. Actually, let's do one more MCP. MCP DevTools. Can I work in headless mode and same line? Add-on question, completely disconnected, I believe. Is it possible to connect to other Chromium-based browsers?
Okay, first question, yes. That's
I
like
want a long answer.
okay.
Yes,
On
and
the QR code on a GitHub repository, there's actually a documentation there. You might be surprised, but we have a documentation, and that documentation also includes how you can run it in headless mode. It's -- headless, unsurprisingly.
super cool.
Yeah, it's because we're using Puppeteer. We're also using Puppeteer command line parameters, right? Second question: can you also connect to other Chromium-based browsers? Officially, we are not supporting that, which means we are not testing that. Unofficially, I mean, if the remote debugging port is open and it's talking CDP, the Chrome DevTools MCP server is not going to check if you're a Chrome browser because it doesn't really care about that. If it talks the same language, which is CDP, and what might happen is there's two things that might happen. One of them is that this Chromium-based browser, be it an Electron app, be it Brave, or be it, I think Curse is also using that, or Chromium. Chromium is fine. Chromium is going to work because there's nothing, there's no delta between for the relevant parts there. But if you consider Brave, for example, or Edge, there's also Microsoft people in here. Edge is also probably also going to work fine because they also.
Safari is not Chrome.
No, Safari is not. No, different story.
We invited
That's another rabbit hole to go down. Right. Remote debugging board, if it can communicate over that, then it's probably going to work somehow, but no guarantees. Maybe. It also depends, but because they're shipping their own browser, so they can also do different things. They might also have an old browser version. And then it's simply not going to work anymore. Because if you're using a browser version that's a year old, and yeah.
That was a good long answer.
Thank you. I tried to please.
Very good. I will switch topic from MCP to Perf again. Let's pick some SSR questions. Okay, which one should I pick? They are all so beautiful, the questions here. How to host an SSR app when you have a CDN based app? Or I would say like when you use a CDN.
I'm not like, so you definitely need some type of a environment that actually runs something. A CDN is just going to be a caching layer in the end, except Cloudflare, which of course, like you have a function that'll actually produce the output, and then you would cache it. If you are considering Cloudflare, then you can just use Cloudflare workers, and you can actually host it there.
Exactly. So you have the static assets which are hosted on Cloudflare static pages, and then for everything else that actually requires a runtime, so SSR, you have the workers.
Very good. And follow-up question, Sam, shoot it.
So that depends on caching, whether or not you can cache the output of it. Essentially, you'd have two layers of it. You have a function that is essentially checking whether or not your output is correct, if you can't use headers in that particular case. And then you have the actual running of the render. So it's how much can you cache it. And they also allow you to actually host a Kubernetes cluster and like an actual server of any runtime, not just Node, like .NET, Rust, whatever you want.
We also use lazy loading, surprisingly, because it reduces the code path and evaluation that every cloud run function needs to do. So with lazy loading, it's not just beneficial for side, but it's also beneficial for SSR.
Do you know if we can share node cache between the two, like two run, like the actual evaluation of the modules? So that would help a lot.
Though you can, I don't know, on Node you can, on Node.js proper, you can use the Node compile cache,
So
but I don't know, like for example, on non-Node.js environments.
yeah, so that's the thing on Cloudflare that might not work, but on a Lambda from AWS, I guess you can share that,
Yeah.
and that would dramatically speed that up.
Yes.
The actual startup execution.
I'm so hyped about SSR. Can I do another one SSR or should we switch? Okay, I do another one. I believe this is again Chris or Alan. I'm super motivated to ask this one.
Ooh, bring it.
Are you ready?
Drum roll.
How? How is when stable deciding to resolve its promises without Zone.js? Does Zoneless already work with SSR? Question.
I think you asked this question. Feeling. So it depends, and it depends. So for example, if you're using the English client, baked into it, it uses the pending tasks API. So basically, any async stuff before it runs, it gets added to a queue, and when it resolves, it gets removed from the queue. However, if you have custom stuff, such as set timeouts, other import awaits, you need to take care of that yourself using depending tasks API.
Short answer, yes. Long answer, you need to take care of a bit more stuff. But it works. Angular.dev doesn't use SSR, but SSG, so static page, static site generation, has been zoneless since we basically made it experimental. So probably 2 years almost. So it works, but there are some quirks and stability, handling the stability, which before was being taken care of by Zone.js. Now you need to be a bit of aware what it takes to keep the application unstable until you have everything and the page can be rendered.
Please remember the golden rules of SSR. Do not manipulate the DOM. Avoid using timers because they will slow down your application immensely. And yeah, no window, no document. There are dedicated hooks if you want to access the window object or the document object, like after next render. The other one.
You can also use the DI to switch the window object.
Hot take.
Hot take.
This platform browser and this platform server are not your friends. Those are anti-patterns. Please do not use them. Like. No.
It's not a hot take. It's not a My hot take that it's not a hot take. The hot take is not. It is not a hot take.
Calm down.
It is not a hot take.
I for once I have the stage to talk about this.
Yes.
Platform browser and this platform server. Those are escape hatches.
Yes.
Those are anti-patterns. Please do not use them.
Yes.
if you need to replace a service or something else, different provider token or whatever, use DI for that. Angular has a very powerful DI system, and you can easily replace a service. I'm sorry, I will look at
Martin?
someone else.
Yes.
So for replacing something or behaving something differently on the server and client side, there's DI for that. If you want to do something specifically on the browser, instead of using this platform browser, use the after next render and after
Render effect.
yes, that hook. I don't remember the hook names. I'm sorry.
It's okay, you just wrote them on your own. So.
Yeah, so
Can happen.
yeah, I mean that is very important. Like though
Do you want to start a fight
because-
now?
You don't wanna have
on, like,
platform
I-
specific code.
because one,
This is a good question.
it is very hard to test because the code part relies on those things, even though you can technically replace the platform value through the I itself. It's very tricky, it's very messy, and it's also not reshakable. So basically, if you have a big if platform server and you put a chunk of code there, it's not reshakable. So if on the platform server, let's say you replace how you get data, instead of doing an HTTP call, you do a database call that you depend on a module that ends up being there on the browser, but you don't want that. So that's a performance thing as well. And yeah, Angular has a powerful DI, and you can do this same thing using the proper patterns, which is dependency injection.
Never.
I mean, there are varied cases to use them, but again, those are very small cases, and those functions are there historically for basically allow users to adopt Angular SSR faster, as in Angular SSR quicker, not faster.
Some cases.
And that's the reason why. Those are just escape patches, and in fact, like that is why they are not heavily documented, because those are not patterns that we want to see in.
I guess, wait 1 second. It was really important stuff. Summarizing, everything is escape hatch. Alan goes to the fitness center every day.
What?
If you misuse it, slaps.
So again, this platform browser and this platform server are not your friends; they are enemies.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I totally get it. It's
But-
an anti-pattern. But just saying, there are a lot of cases where just attempting to use DI adds a lot of complexity, and there are straightforward ways to do it.
Where?
It just I can show you. I'm very happy to pull out a laptop and show you how many times, even though the right solution was there, it wasn't worth pausing development to get that thing quite right and
know-
add a bunch of additional.
You know how many apps I've seen, like using a single service with a bunch of if platform server is platform browser, the get data does this data does that, blah blah blah. Use local storage, use global object. It's incredible. Like, I think it should be documented. Like,
It's terrible.
these are not your friends.
Okay. One last one. NG server mode is tree shakeable. Terrible idea.
It's not a public API.
Yeah.
So
It-
NG server mode, yeah, it is there. It is private
Terrible idea.
API similar to NG dev mode. Those are the whole purpose of that.
but
the
but
whole-
not the function. Is dev mode NG dev mode is private, but is dev mode is public,
is,
which
yes,
is not tree shakeable.
yes. Because let's not go through NG dev mode. I can speak because that's a whole different topic, and that's a very complicated one. And the NG, basically, so one of the reasons of NG server mode is there so we can make parts of the framework tree shakeable.
Yes.
So you don't ship if blocks in the cloud.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that where this NgDeps, Ng server mode is used primarily, it's, or at least a lot of places, is outside of the eye context. So you cannot just replace the whole, I don't know, instruction set or hydration set.
And there are other cases with escape hatches that we didn't deprecate, like NgDev mode, escape hatch, we didn't deprecate it. There are some weird edge cases we don't recommend. I said it again on an issue yesterday and last week. It's not recommended. We will not recommend it, but it still exists. Same shit for the is platform something. And I felt like Dimitro, if you want to have to do some content, you can after discussion have just make a video. Yeah, maybe try something else than using is platform something.
But like, of course, like, not as a bad thing, no.
Me neither, but it's a very interesting discussion to have.
Yeah, so because like I often like use the inline doc, right, the TypeScript, but like for the Angular APIs, I don't go to the web, and just like maybe it would be worthwhile to come up with this concept of like, you know, not recommended but possible, but like think twice and like standardize it and put it in the beginning of every inline doc of these APIs. You know, why not?
We are an open community. We accept PRs very happily.
I'm lazy.
PRs and open issue if you have a question.
Might you do it, please?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm more or less responsible for the doc, so I like to hear your weird use cases and your questions. Just ask questions. You will only remain stupid if you don't ask it. So please.
So don't remain stupid. Good. Let's
Please
go to the next
open
question.
issues and PRs.
The next question. Okay, thank you. I will answer that straight away because we answered it already. The question is Angular server-side rendering. How is application stability tracked in zoneless apps? It's the pending task
Pending
API.
task.
Thanks. Now I also feel super smart here. Okay. Back to the topic, virtual views. Does it make sense to use Rx virtual view for lists as well, or performance-wise, is it slower?
Good question. I would always, if you have a list, suggest to just use the proper virtual scrolling technique. It's adding less code and less eventlessness. In general, it should perform. It won't be a big measurable difference, but I think the virtual scrolling technique just for lists is the better approach in general. But you could try it out. And maybe it's a disappointing answer because I really didn't ever measure it because it doesn't make sense. They are for two different purposes.
So I'll go back to Michael's suggestions. If you have any doubts, just measure.
I love to get mentioned here. Elise, the resource API and caching. Can we do things wrong with caching? Is there any downside? Can I do too much? Do I need to consider something?
Yeah, for sure. It's always a balance, I would say. First, a balance between the complexity of your code base and the gain that you have in terms of performance. I am thinking in particular, maybe that's a bit extrapolating in comparison with caching, but for example, optimistic updates, I think it's often, even so I showed it earlier, I think it can be often like overkill, and same applies. I mean, it really depends on the way you do it. And I think it's a disappointing answer, but just don't over engineer things. That's the one thing I would recommend. And also, if you go for caching, I would also strongly advise to use a caching library. So unfortunately, there is no for the resource API, so maybe there is something to do there. But because also out of experience, it can quickly become like a rabbit hole because you have like most of the cases, like 90% of the cases, and then you have like edge cases, like say 10% of the cases. And this 10% can quickly become complicated when you start addressing them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit rabbit hole thing. So I would strongly advise to go use a tool for that.
I want to mention, you showed the optimistic updates as one of the, I would say, cool things to leverage caching. And you showed, I would say, a correct example. You have like one tiny value, it's a number that you count up or down. From experience, I can tell you, if you take that a little bit more bigger, let's say you update an object, a user, or you do multiple updates after another. I want to pull out the Amazon example. Amazon also has optimistic updates, but they took it to the 10th next level. They will tell you your package is on the way, and they don't even know if it's in the warehouse. It's true story. It's not a joke. Reverting an optimistic update is a pain in the ass, and what do you say? Is it, because my personal opinion is, keep it as small as possible, do as little changes as possible, because you don't only deal with the happy path, you also should consider rollbacks, yeah? And they get really complicated when you have more. How do you see that with the rollback?
For the rollback, I would say that if you use a library like a Tanstack query, for example, it more or less takes that in charge in terms that it does a snapshot of the state before, and then it just comes back to the state before. The issue comes when you have like other mutations in between. So then, but it becomes like it can become a complicated case in the case. And on that one, I'm not really sure about how to handle that even with a library. But I would say on most of the case, if you use a tool, then you can do the rollback. I would say it's okay, except it maybe if you have like lots of mutation at the same time, which could be the case in Amazon probably.
Maybe.
And for that specific case, I think I would have to have a look. I wouldn't be able to give an answer right now. And about optimistic updates, also I would say like apart from the rollback, so if you do it by hand, might be more complicated, but it's more like having like a snapshot of your previous state. But yeah, I think that the concurrency is the most important problem. And also about optimistic update, I would say that for me the biggest drawback is that you are reproducing your backend logic in the front end. So that's the reason why like I think that it has to be worth it when you use it.
Still, I mean, I love it because you click on the button, like the GitHub star button. It's perfect example. You click it, it's start done.
The Twitter likes, same shit.
You don't, yeah, Twitter likes. You don't even care, and options are loaded. Like click is failing. Yeah.
Can I make a small joke?
Sorry.
Totally related to the question.
Next time.
So, no. It's
Okay.
there are
Take
two
it.
problems.
Why are you even asking if you just want to say it?
Because I'm polite,
And
but I don't care about the
every
answer.
time you ask, I say no. So go
There
for
are two
it.
hard problems in computer science: cache invalidation, naming things.
And off by one errors.
Exactly.
Mic
Next
drop.
question.
Next question. No, I have Alex on the phone. He is saying greetings to everyone. Alex Rikabu from the Angular team. He is our NgGlühwein mascot, I would even say. Every year here. This year not. He is very sad. Just as a small side info. Good. More questions. Let me pick one from the MCP section. Okay. Pretty cool that the MCP tool can fix your bugs and analyze the app in real time. How about real enterprise applications, like really big ones? Is it still working there, or will it just zone out? And AI is assuming it's not working anymore.
I can give more context because this is my question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So in all of those demo apps, also traces are super simple. Source maps are everything is extremely simple. It's easy to figure out. Okay, when I just preload that image, then it will be faster. Awesome. The thing is, it's not so easy in real world apps. Like if you try to optimize resource load delay, okay, then you have improved resource load delay, but you just you move the bottleneck to something else. And the question is, how far does it go and how much does it understand of that improving this one thing will not ultimately lead to the improvement you really want to have?
Okay. Good question. Okay. First, let's define what you mean with it, right? Because what I was talking today about is the Chrome DevTools MCP server, and that thing actually very nice. Thank you very much. Do you want to say something? You were saying you were very polite before. That was very unpolite. Okay, now that you have settled that, do you want to answer the question? No. So you said that, going back to that, you said it. So I was using any MCP client, any AI coding agent. I think I was using Claude in a few examples. I was using Gemini CLI in a few examples. You can use Antigravity, you can use Codex, whatever. It doesn't matter. Pick a poison. I already said that. No, I mean it in a good way. Pick whatever you have available and you're happy with. Doesn't really matter. Why does this work? Because what our MCP server is offering is simply tools and capabilities, right? So we're offering like, here's a screwdriver, here's a ruler, and with that you can drive in screws, and you can also measure the size of, I don't know, the door frame, for example. And with that you can drive in the screws at the right location and stuff like that, right? Because what's missing in there yet is the skill level, right? That skill level is coming from the coding agents. Okay, coding agents, they're relatively smart because the model's becoming better and better and better, and they are in particular very good with reasoning about code, but they're also becoming better of doing this more interactive software development, like debugging, for example, and handling that. Having said that, you also need to instruct them correctly. Like, for example, in this enterprise environment, right? Let's assume you have this a very big dashboarding software in front of you, and it's kind of like, yeah, make this load faster. And there's like 10 different things that actually are a problem there. What you typically would be doing, also as a performance engineer, probably would be looking at it, and then you would start working through it and saying, okay, this is working, this is not working, this makes it worse. Then you will revert, try out some other changes, and after a few hours you're saying, okay, this is now actually a lot faster, and we did a few things and a few other things that don't work. And that's also how you need to treat such a setup. So I would not expect that it's going to be a one-shot thing that's going to work, like in our examples, but it's actually going to take a few hours and stuff like that running, and you need to have it a little bit on the way, instruct it, make sure that you're also trying it out. Is it faster? If not, try something else. Save your progress, for example, in a Markdown file, because later on you can pick it up and I can have a look at it. For example, that's what I'm sometimes doing. Like, just save it in a Markdown file where you are with your research, and then you can continue. I hope that answered your question.
Very much, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, you're saying that the tool is as dumb as the person asking the question. I mean, writing the prompt.
In spirit, you summarized it a little bit, but I didn't say that.
No, I'm just saying that.
But yes, I mean, it's.
I've tried
Somebody
hammering
has-
a nail with a
Yeah.
screwdriver. It doesn't work well.
Yeah, right. But I mean, you can do that, right?
I've just a follow-up on that. Because in the performance panel, we, for example, have also insights,
Yes.
right? Do we have access to that in the MCP?
That's the thing that's actually exposed over the MCP server if you do a performance trace. So what's happening, a trace is being run, and that trace is then being analyzed by DevTools frontend, and DevTools frontend is then generating the insights, the same ones that you see in the performance panel, and those insights is then being exposed to the over the MCP server to the MCP clients, because the trace is simply too big. I mean, the trace is like multiple megabytes at least, and that is simply too big for any MCP AI agent right now to actually handle. In the DevTools frontend, we have also this AI assistance thing, and that is actually a performance agent, and that thing can navigate the trace more or less. So that works a little bit differently. That's actually going through, not in, like literally more or less, going through the flame graph and trying to figure out what's actually happening. Because again, it can't handle a whole trace, but it can handle step by step and then generating reports. We have plans to also somehow expose that via, for example, a Claude's Kill or something like that. But yeah, that is a different story.
Okay, fair enough. Like the idea would just be go through the insights, work off all the suggestions, do another trace, work off all the suggestions, do another trace until no suggestions are there anymore.
So, something like that.
Awesome.
Thomas, you're sitting here all alone. Wanna have a question? Dynamic forms. Is there a case where dynamic forms have a negative impact?
Negative impact about what?
Negative impact. The person didn't specify more details.
I just want to say it's like, if there is negative impact and you have a valid use case, open an issue, we want to hear about it. No, I mean, it's important. We are creating a new API. We want to make it good. And it's important that we don't create an API that works against you, should work with you. So if you have a valid use case, share your story, share your use case. We want to understand it. And if we can help you write something interesting, we probably help someone else by improving our authoring story, authoring of forms. So there is no bad usage. It's just like we need to understand, and if we can improve.
I have here
Let's
more
fucking do
info.
it.
Negative impact in terms of productivity, DX, or performance.
Use case, use case, use case.
As you heard, like you should open the issue, right? But there is like this secret workflow. You can follow Matthieu on Twitter, and he has DMs open. I have been using this secret workflow for last year, and the results are amazing.
Well, he doesn't tell you, I'm asking several times to open an issue.
As you might realize, Thomas, with this voice, was working on a sex hotline before his job. Hello.
Trying to instantiate a form.
Follow Matthieu on Twitter. No, stupid joke. Back to reality. Node security, Alan. Don't hit me. It's an escape hatch. I say it front off. No. How much of your time do you spend to focus on preventing security issues, or did you ever spend time to hack something in all the ways that you would try to protect from? It's just us and the live
No.
recording, so
I mainly focus on preventing,
prevent.
fixing security issues.
Okay. Do you know someone that hacked anyone else in person? If yes, can I have telephone number, address, first name, last name, and
I know people who report security issues. So
let's keep the fun story for later. Let's go on. There is a little bit of MCP, little bit of virtual fuse left. Let's go. Yeah. I will skip the memlab question for MCP. It's not supported yet. They will support it in the future, but it's complicated. Memlab, memory leak, memory debugging, blah, any of those tools. You just open up an issue and that's how you solve the problem nowadays. Open up an issue, they will never read it, then they will close it because no activity, and then you're screwed. The second one is true. I know it from other repos. Okay, cool. But I will ask another one. Yeah, I will take this one. So the cut out news button that you showed, why isn't the MCP, so the MCP uses visual comparison, he makes basically pixel screenshots. Why isn't the MCP using JavaScript to calculate if the element is out of viewport or not? Isn't it cheaper with JavaScript? Question. I can say no, it's not cheaper with JavaScript, but go on.
That is an excellent question, and I don't have an answer. But the interesting piece is, you can ask your AI agent why it thinks that's better. No, honestly, you can do that. It's super interesting sometimes to have this conversation. Like, why did you take this thing and not did the other things? Like, oh yeah, I thought that doesn't work and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I
So-
thought. For sure you thought. For sure.
Try it out.
No, but I was making fun of the AI. I was thinking...
Whatever.
He doesn't even know what happened in the past, but okay.
But typically, in MCP, you're exposing functions and you're describing what the functions can do and how you should be using them. And that's what an MCP client is then consuming in order to decide which tools are being called. So in that case, for example, right, it sees, takes screenshot, it knows from training, screenshot is visual, the person is asking about something visual. That's close enough, so I'm going to call that tool more or less very simplified. That it also can use JavaScript to calculate coordinates and do all this other stuff is not the first choice. It's probably also not the first choice for most humans to do, to be honest. But that's a different story. So it's straight on that. It's the closest thing that's going to do. It probably can also do the other thing. You can ask the thing and see what happens.
Last MCP, I will skip the top one here. MCP dev tools, how do you see the future? Connecting multiple MCP servers, is it... It seems to take away a lot of devs' work on a day-to-day basis. Where will that end in the future? Do we have a job in the future or not? I'm already afraid.
That got dark very fast. I mean, there's where you see right now for what coding agents are being used is you use them as a software developer, so they're doing stuff right next to you. Like, for example, I think we had some refactoring projects going on, like refactor that component to something else and stuff like that, right? And you're outsourcing it to that. Very useful for that. But what now also is happening is, you might have seen that, if it, for example, Copilot, and Google is Jules, and there's a few other solutions like that, where you point it at a GitHub issue and then also does things automatically. What you can see there, experience.
Sorry,
That's nice. Yeah, that's
ignore it.
What you see there is very often a person, a human, actually need to look at the output and actually need to, or the stuff that's being produced, they need to review it, because if a knowledgeable human is not doing that, typically it doesn't. Typically it goes sideways. You might have seen all those web coding security horror stories out there. So, will there be a job for developers? Yes.
I also
Will it change? Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I want to add something to that. AI agents and things like that are very useful as a debugging body.
Last question.
Actually, playing with
Ah.
MCPs and choosing tools is the most fun part of agentic programming, because actually doing it is not fun at all, and solving bugs is not fun at all either. Doing this because I'm doing this for a year of production.
Speaking
All the
about,
pain in my voice, if you can feel it.
I hear it, I feel it until here. Yeah. I believe like coding will also get different with this AI stuff. I feel more dead inside when I code with AI agents than when I do it normally. And when I do it for 3 days in a row, I feel really like exhausted from watching the thing doing stuff wrong. Yeah, and the problem is like you can just push it in the background tab, next problem, background tab, you know, like fix the lint, fix the unit test, fix it. At some point I feel like stressed to do more.
Are you? So you're
Do
managing
you know that
people, right?
feeling?
You're managing people, right?
Uh,
It's
I should.
because no, actually it's like a shift. You're more shifting towards working like an engineering manager than working as a software engineer at that point. And that is a change in how you work.
Yep.
Change is never appreciated by humans. So it totally makes sense that it makes it, because it's different. You do a different type of work.
I get the pain of change, fully agree with it, but, and at the same time, not but, and at the same time, to make it positive, if I manage people, it's still a different feeling than if I manage an AI agent. It is like so much different than,
Because you
I
can
would
bully-
still argue I'm more exhausted from the AI managing.
Are you bullying your agent?
Many times.
Are you bullying your employees?
Many times.
Which one is bullying you back?
Definitely the employees. Man, never knew that. Okay,